All right, guys, it is the final video for this week. You still have one more day after this before I come back, but there will be no video for tomorrow. We're going to do ACAP geometry practice. I don't think you'll need a video for that, but do your best whether there's a video or not. Okay, final thing on fractions before I come back. We're going to continue comparing fractions. What is that? We're going to continue comparing fractions, but we're going to use something called benchmarks. Now, you may have heard of these in 3rd grade, but our main benchmarks are going to be 0, 1, and 1/2. Okay, so we can compare things to 1 whole and 0 and 1/2. If I say, let's say 1/8 compared to 0. Well, which one is more? 1/8 is, because 0 is nothing. You have nothing. If you have $0, you have $0. If you have 1/8 of a dollar, I don't think you can do that. But anyway, you have more than nothing, so 1/8 would be greater. If you have 1/8 of a cake, there we go. You have no cake, you have 1/8 of a cake. You have more cake if you have just 1/8 of a cake. So that's easy enough. But you can also compare 1/8 to 1/2 or 1 whole. Which is greater? 1/2 or 1/8? Well, 1/2 is greater. Which is greater? 1 whole, we can write a whole, by the way, as 1 over 1, or 5 over 5, 4 over 4, 3 over 3, 2 over 2, 8 over 8, 10 over 10, or we can just write it as 1. It means the same thing, because 1 divided by 1 is 1. But 1 whole compared to 1/8, which is greater? 1 whole for sure. So there you go. But we can not only use these to compare directly like that, we can also say, I want to compare 1/8 versus 1/5. But I'm going to do it by comparing each to a benchmark. Okay, 1/8 we know is greater than 0. 1/5 is greater than 0. 1/8 compared to 1/2, 1/2 is bigger. 1/2 is bigger than 1/5 too. Okay, this really isn't helpful. Let's do 2/5. I apologize. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to make 8 videos for several weeks in the future, but it is there's more thinking involved than you'd think, and I'm tired. So thank you for bearing with me. Let's get to it. So we have 1/8 versus 2/5. Okay, well, we know that 1/8 is less than 1/2. We know it's less than 1 whole. But let's look at 2/5. 2/5 compared to 1/2. Okay, still less than 1/2. Still less than 1 whole. But think about, look at these 2/5 compared to 1/2. They're pretty close, right? When we had 1/8 compared to it, 1/8 was almost, it was closer to 0 than it was 1/2. Whereas 2/5 is closer to 1/2 than it is to 0. So we can say, since 1/8 is closer to 0 and 2/5 is closer to 1/2, therefore 2/5 is greater than 1/8. Okay, we can take this and, I need that 1/2. What if though we had 5/8? Let's put them over here. 5/8 versus 4/5. Okay, so now we're getting into some things that we're a little less comfortable with. But I can compare 5/8 to 1/2. Okay, I see that 5/8 is more than 1/2, but it's not quite a whole. And I can compare 4/5 to the same thing. 3/5, 4/5. Okay, compared to the half, 5/8 is more than 1/2, and so is 4/5. They're both more than 1/2. So then we can think about compared to 1 whole. Take the half away. 4/5 is almost a whole. It's pretty close. And even though I have 5/8 it's not quite as close to a whole as 4/5 is. So the whole idea of benchmark fractions is that instead of comparing them directly like this, we can add some reason in there and kind of think which one is close, whether it's closer to a half or 0 or 1, and that will help us decide which is greater. So not only is 4/5 clearly greater than 5/8 just by comparing them directly, but also 4/5 is much closer to 1 whole, and 1/8 is a little closer to 1/2, so it's much smaller in all aspects. So we can go ahead and confidently say that 4/5 is greater than 5/8, or 5/8 is less than 4/5. But we can also use number lines. Let me get this paper back out from yesterday's work. We can use number lines, and this actually works pretty well. 4/5, 5/8 versus 4/5. Okay, I'm going to find my eighths. We have sixths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here are our eighths. This is going to be 8/8. And we have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8, and so on. But we're going to compare it to 4/5. My fifths, 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My fifths are here. So that would be 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5. 4/5 is right here. 5/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to compare these to 1/2. If I look at this and I think about this coming down as a vertical line, which is closer to 1/2? 5/8 or 4/5? Should be a fifth. I don't know what happened. Well, 5/8 is closer to 1/2. 4/5 is further from 1/2. But let's look at 1 whole, which is closer to 1 whole. 4/5 or 5/8? 4/5 is closer to 1 whole. So if it's closer to 1 whole, then that means it's greater. Let's get another example. 1/6 versus 2/8. 1/6 versus 2/8. Okay, here's 1/6. Let's compare it to 1/2. Okay, it is definitely less than 1/2, which means it's less than 1 whole. Kind of close to 0. We need 5 more to make a whole, 5 more sixths. But we're going to now look at 2/8 compared to 1/2. Okay, so these are pretty close. Still much less than 1/2, still a whole lot less than a whole, much less than a whole. They're both kind of close to 0. So this may not be the best one to use for a benchmark, but let's do it anyway. When we compare them next to each other like this, we see that 2/8 is larger than 1/6. Now 1/8 would be smaller than 1/6, but 2/8 is going to be larger. Benchmarks don't work for every number, but we can certainly try. There are some that work better for benchmarks than others. For example, let's see. 1/2 versus 5/6. Which one is closer to a whole? 5/6 will be closer. 1/4 versus 2/3. Which one is closer to a whole? Well, 2/3 will be closer to a whole. So let's show that on here. So we have 2/3 here. 1/4 would be here. 1/4 is going to be closer to 0, just one little step, and 2/3 is just one step away from a whole. So then we can say that 2/3 is greater than 1/4. That's about it on that. Today you guys are going to get a packet. It's benchmark fractions, fractions that you can use to compare other fractions. Example, 1/2. How do other fractions compare to 1/2? So then, before we get to that, let's do one more thing. if we just think about 1/2, here's 1/2. I'm going to do a fraction up here, and I'm going to do a fraction down here. Let's do fifths here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5. Oh, that's 0. 0. Ooh, be careful, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/5. I am ready to go home. And I bet you guys are too. But hang in there. It's going to be great. Okay, last thing. So the 1/2 is right here. If I have 1/5 over here, it's over here. It's on the left side of 1/2. If I have 7/8, okay, we might be able to tell that 7/8 is more than 1/5 just by thinking about it for a second. But by looking at the number line, we see 1/2. 1/5 is less, it's closer to 0. 7/8 is closer to 1. Therefore, because 7/8 is more than 1/2 and 1/5 is less than 1/2, then that means 7/8 is going to be more than 1/5. That's benchmark fraction. But you're going to get this packet. You are going to kind of have a little bit of everything we've done the past couple of weeks. You're going to have to shade. You're going to have to make some equivalent fractions. You're going to have to shade some fractions to compare. You will need to circle the correct answer over here. And then we even have number lines on here. I was actually going to teach number lines today, but while going through this, I decided it'd be better if we learned about number lines before you were asked to do these problems. So, one last time, good luck. I will see you guys in a few days. Have a great Thursday and Friday. And I look forward to seeing you guys. Bye.